that are just joining now, and I can see there's still a big flood, welcome. My name is Jenna Baskin. I'm the CEO of MCI, and we are running a session called A Brave New World. So for anyone that doesn't know, MCI is notorious for going to overseas conferences and seeing what's out and about, whether it's in Europe or the US. And so it's nice in this new COVID world to be able to get out and about again. And so 3 of us went to the ASU+GSV conference. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, and I can see more people are joining, so please keep introducing yourself, where you're from, what you do, and whether you're based at home or in the office today. So I'm going to get started. Please ask questions as we're going. I want this to be as interactive as possible. For those of you that know MCI sessions, you know that we usually run them from our office in Sydney or in Melbourne, but new world of working, a brave new world, as I should say, we're going hybrid. So let's see how this goes. So if my clicker will work, let's see. So these are just a couple of statements that we heard. And I should just preface, there were 3 of us that went to this conference, 7,000 people, multiple concurrent sessions. And so this is just our lens and our view of what we saw at this massive conference. You had everyone at this conference from schools to universities to corporates to big tech like Meta, Facebook, Google, big finance firms, Goldman Sachs, and everyone in between. 7,000 people, mainly from the US and Canada, but many from overseas as well. And so these are some of these statements that really just took our breath away. So I love this one. You can't use an old map for a new world. I think we can use that in a lot of training sessions and a few other change management projects. EdTech is not just a hypothesis, it's an essential tool for the future. So that's really embracing technology. We love that one. I thought this one was interesting, and everyone pretended that it wasn't them. It was obviously the people next to them that this affected, but this is the new generation that's coming into our workforce. So we spend on average 100 daily minutes on social media. Quite scary, but also we got to face the reality. And I love this one. Nothing solves everything, but education comes close. So let's get started. So as I said, I'm Jenna Baskin. I'm the CEO of MCI. There were 3 of us at this conference. So for those of you that know Denise, she was also there, and we had Vern from our team as well. And so again, just saying this is our lens and this is our view of what we took away from this conference. Before we get into it, I just want to do an acknowledgement to country. So MCI acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, and I know many of you are across the country. We are on Gadigal land at the moment, and their continuing connection to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So for those of you that don't know who MCI is, and I can see that there's a few new faces and some that may not have met us before, I won't go too much into detail on this, but basically we've been around for 20 years. It's our 20-year anniversary, which in our industry is pretty exciting. We've won many awards. We do a full gamut of learning and development solutions. We're also an RTO. And I guess where we stand out and come from an innovation perspective is that we try and look at learning and development at scale. So we have a lot of unique training solutions that are able to do things at scale, whether it's e-learning development, live virtual classroom subscription, and a whole bunch of things in between. So if you don't know much about us, please shout, but I would prefer to get back into the presentation and we can get back onto that at the end. For those of you as well that don't know, we're a proud member of a company called APM. Some of you may work with some of our sibling organizations, Assure Programs. Many of you may work with them as an EAP provider. Communicorp does mental health training, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, please ping us in chat or your account manager. But let's get started. So what are we going to be covering today? The major mega trends in learning. The new hybrid world of work, which we all know, as I asked you in chat, some of you are working from home, some of you are working in the office. How do we teach people in this new hybrid world of work? How do we provide learning opportunities and education engagement? We're going to talk about virtual reality, and I know it's been around for a while, but it's still there and where we're seeing the uses of that. More AI and the implications for education and training. And I would love to hear from you guys, who's using AI, who's scared of it, who's excited by it, all of those sorts of things. And then let's put some ChatGPT to work in case you guys haven't used that before. So it would be good to get some feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down, everything in between. Is that okay as an agenda? Good, good. I can see Katie. Thank you. A lot of thumbs up. Thank you, everyone. Let's get cracking. So first things first, pop into chat. What do you think are the mega trends that we need to be aware of in L&D? So remember, they describe the ASU+GSV conference as the Davos of education. So it's where everyone thinks big and is talking about big topics and what's coming. So what do you think are the mega trends? So I see AI, gamification, micro learning. Yep, more micro learning, more AI. Wow, experiential learning. Okay. Is training the answer? All right. Good question posed by quite a lot of speakers. Flexibility, flow of work, attention spans. Thank you, Michael. That is a good one that comes from my comment about the 100 minutes on social media. In the moment feedback. Okay, all fantastic, fantastic answers. So let's get into it. The first one, and they preface by saying this is not a mega trend, it is a giga trend. AI. Artificial intelligence. If we have been putting our heads in the sand up until now, it is time to lift yourself up and see what is coming, because it was described as the greatest change since the Industrial Revolution. The advancement of AI and what we used to know as AI, which used to do one task very well, open AI and generative AI has taken us to another level. And I'll show you a chart in a moment. But really, what we were joking about, Vern, Denise, and I, is that we may as well have changed the name of the conference from ASU+GSV. They may well have called it the AI conference. Because if we had $1 for every time it was mentioned, not only would our wallet be overflowing, we physically would have been bringing dollars back in suitcases. Every single speaker, no matter what they were talking about, had to mention AI in some way, shape, or form and how it's shaping their industry. So it is a giga trend. It is something that we need to embrace. And for those of you that haven't seen this, you know, it was quite eye-opening for us. So everyone knows Netflix. You can see the Netflix chart. So this is the number of days of 1 million and then 100 million users by technology. So you can see Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, all of these things that we use or have heard of. ChatGPT is straight up. It is the fastest adoption of a technology we have ever seen in our existence. And so this is really, really important, because if we're talking about learning for our employees and for the future generations and the next generation, we've got to be looking at AI and ChatGPT. And so I think we need to acknowledge, and a lot of the speakers, including Sam Altman himself, who's the creator of OpenAI, received $10 billion from Microsoft. He was very upfront in saying that he acknowledges that it makes some people nervous. Some people from the university sector were opening up discussions about, you know, is it plagiarism? How do we adapt our university approach and how do we test people? Some people were saying, you know, will it take my job? Will there be entire roles wiped out because of AI? Is it ethical? You know, has it been trained in a way that does it have guardrails and know what to say and do, or does it just sort of go off on its own? Because ultimately it is going to be smarter than a human. Some people are turning around saying, well, I don't know what it's about, so I'd prefer to just say, you know, that's a machine and we're still humans and humans are going to do human work. It's very, very unknown, and a lot of the speakers did acknowledge that. And I think particularly in learning and development in HR, we need to acknowledge that within our workforce, we're going to have a huge range of people that are going to fit on the spectrum, people that are using ChatGPT already as part of their role, and others that are turning around saying, I've seen my kids using it and I'm not happy with it. And so we're going to be going through a huge change management piece. So I just wanted to acknowledge that up front. But on the flip side, it's pretty amazing. It really has democratized education and knowledge. And as one of the speakers said, it makes sure that everyone has access to it, can be an Einstein. And it is free. Yes, you can have a paid version, but everyone can have access to it and be an Einstein. And so ChatGPT can pass medical and legal exams. In fact, for anyone that knows ChatGPT, GPT-4, which is the new version, the paid version, is actually in the 85th percentile of the New York bar exam, which is the law exam, and nearly 90th percentile of the medical exams in the US. So quite scary. The original free ChatGPT, I think, was about the 15th percentile, so still passes, but in the lower percentile. There are a lot of tools out there that say they can detect if a student is using AI, but straight from the horse's mouth of a professor at Wharton University, University of Pennsylvania, said that they cannot detect. And in fact, they are rather saying to students, please tell us when you are using it, because we actually want to see how you got to asking what the prompt was. That is where the smarts are. So that's something to be aware of. What constitutes plagiarism is up for discussion. I know there's a lot of discussion in Australia in the legal community because AI is fresh and new every time. So are we plagiarizing? Over 1 billion people who have access to the internet will now have access to AI. It democratizes things. And I think really for us, what we were debating, the three of us and with other people that we were sitting next to, is we don't know where this massive transformation will take us. We're sort of at the precipice and the start of it, but there is so much opportunity. So just things to keep in mind as we're talking about AI. So these are the sorts of discussion points that some of the speakers were talking about from a learning and development lens. And remember, this is K to 12, university, and what they call lifelong learning or corporate learning. And so definitely faster and more effective course development. We've seen that in our own team. Our team is able to push content out faster. You still need to know what you're asking, and you still need to know what good content looks like. So it's not taking away the human, but it's allowing them to do their job more efficiently. Customization of content for specific cohorts, and we're going to talk about ChatGPT, but there were great examples where you can give an example, write this content or this quiz as if you are a year 10 student, or as if you are an alien that's just landed from the moon. You can do those sorts of things, and you can get more specific as well. So Certificate 3 in IT is a new course that we have, training people in cybersecurity. We can write it for someone who doesn't know anything about IT. Assessment of quizzes, faster and more effective. Again, for our assessors, it's painful and annoying for them to sit there marking quizzes when they, it's the same sort of answers. We can get them doing more human stuff, which is giving feedback to students or sitting one-on-one and tutoring them, as opposed to just assessing quizzes. You can teach at scale, which I thought was a very exciting, because everyone talks about it, but this has really enabled it. Dramatic acceleration of learning, so keep that in mind as we're talking. And this was the most powerful one for all of us that were there, is that particularly in the US, but Australia as well, your learning outcome will no longer be dictated by your postcode. So where you were born or where you live, it has democratized education. And I'm going to give you an example of how it's being used in K to 12, where literally Vern, Denise, and I, our jaws dropped as to what is coming in the K to 12 world, which means it's coming for us in corporate world as well. The other thing I loved, one of the speakers was saying, is that it's the holy grail of learning, which we all try and get to and want to be at, is personalization. Everyone promises it. Let's be honest, not many people can deliver it. But with AI, you can. It can learn the difference between me, Denise, Vern, Vanessa, whoever it is, and understand our style of learning, what we like learning, and we're going to get to that point. We're just at the precipice of it. You can give adaptive feedback for each person in the style that they like. So some people like more written, some like more verbal, some like examples, some like bullet points. So it'll learn. Learning paths will be adjusted to suit their needs. And again, I'll show you how Khan Academy is doing that for K to 12. Immediate skills boosters in the flow of work. There's a definite reason why Microsoft put $10 billion into ChatGPT, because they are slowly rolling it out across Office 365. They want people who are sitting in Excel and struggling with a formula to immediately be able to ask it's going to be called Autopilot, to ask Autopilot, how do I do this? And not only does it give them the answer, it will train them on what is the best way to do that. And then let's all be honest, our employees hate old school e-learning modules that you sit there racing to click who can get to the quiz at the end. It's going to be banishing that and getting more personalized. So no comments or questions in the chat. So I'm going to keep going, but if you have comments or questions, please feel free to keep putting them through. This one I absolutely loved, because the speaker wanted to acknowledge that people are worried about jobs. There are entire workforces that are worried about jobs when AI takes off. And so this speaker eloquently put AI plus HI equals ROI. So I really loved this one, and it was a different spin and approach of how we can look at the change management and the wave of fear that is going to be coming. And he said, and it's true, you've got to marry artificial intelligence with the human intelligence. It is the layer that goes on top of the software that enables it to think and do and follow a path and come with the right creativity and answers. And so only when you combine the two are you going to get the proper return on investment. And so it's also leaning, humans can't do it on their own. The AI can't do it on their own, and we need to find a way to work together. And somebody said, will we be overrun by machines? Is this, some sci-fi movie that's going to be taking over? He says we won't. The magic happens when you combine the two. That's where it's coming. Interesting question from Joe Google Bard. I have had a play with Google Bard. I prefer ChatGPT. My husband is a data scientist and actuary and loves coding, and he says ChatGPT is better for coding, but open to looking at that, because I know that for anyone that doesn't know, Google Bard is live, so it can give you real-time answers from the internet, whereas ChatGPT is a bit older. So some things to consider. But yeah, both of them at the very start, and I think one of the slides will mention, but Sam Altman says, just think, and he's the founder of OpenAI, just think that what we have now is the worst it will ever be. It's pretty mind-blowing to me now, but it is the worst it will ever be. It's only going to get better from here. So mega trend 2, the transformative power of technology. And what I loved about this conference, and as I said, we split ourselves across different sessions, and there were people from universities, traditional blue-collar workforces, government, tech companies. Everyone was talking about technology and how they've embraced technology differently. And I love this word, transformative power of technology. So it wasn't just using technology to enable, but rather working in partnership. And I loved one of the presenters, it may have even been Bill Gates, said, you cannot uninvent what has been invented. It is out there, and we need to find a way to embrace it. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, there are ethical issues and guardrails that need to be considered, and I can assure you that a lot of people are working on that. I will talk to you, as I mentioned, about what Khan Academy is doing with Khan Migo, like Amigo. I like the name, so they've trademarked that very nicely, and they've actually put in an AI that whole job is to police the AI. So there's two AIs, one's just watching the AI, so that puts in the guardrails there. But it's things that we do need to consider, but it's changing productivity levels. And some of the examples that the speakers were using was just incredible, taking just the boring and mundane roles that people are doing in their day-to-day, stripping those out, enabling AI to do them so that we can get humans to do human things. And so the unprecedented scale was what really shocked us. And we were sometimes joking, we walked around the conference a little bit like country, we were a bit confused about where we were. Maybe we're a bit Australian and, haven't been let out of our country for a while, but it was just so like a tsunami that had hit us. And we weren't really sure what was going on. So we looked like a bit of deer in headlights. So the one thing as well is that anyone can now learn anywhere. And we used to say that you could do that, but it was based on your NBN connection, and it was based on a whole bunch of things, what sort of laptop you had at home or what sort of computer skills that you had. Now you can get anyone at any age to be talking to ChatGPT, and you can be bringing that into the workforce. And the growth of autonomous invisible learning was amazing. And so some of the stats that they were giving us, just as examples to think outside of the traditional learning that we give to people. So Duolingo, if anyone's heard of that, where it teaches you other languages, that's 60 million active monthly users, which is huge. Kahoot, which is a fun learning and quizzing game, I think it was the second coolest brand after Nike, was voted by the what is the new generation? Gen Z. So that was pretty interesting. YouTube has 13,000 new subscribers every day. So think of the cumulative effects of that. And they gave other examples. I mean, gaming, so Roblox, for anyone who has kids that play Roblox and other gaming, was unbelievable in terms of the stats, in terms of hundreds of millions of hours being played on these sorts of games. And they see that as invisible learning. And so thing about ChatGPT and Kahoot, free versions were quite limiting. I'm not sure about Kahoot, but I would say, Annie, the free version of ChatGPT is pretty good. I have the paid version, which is $20 a month, but most of our team uses the free one, and it's pretty good. Or so we think, but open to no, it's more than 5 questions. Last I checked, I think the paid one is 25 questions every 3 hours, but I'll have to check that for you. But the free one is open. Go for gold. So the other one, which was mega trend number 3, and again comes from the lens that we did go to quite a few college discussions, but it is a hot topic globally at the moment, of the unbundling of the college degree or the university degree. Does everyone need to go to university for 3-4 years? Can we look at stackable credentials from colleges and universities, micro credentials that are a bit more flexible and give people more targeted skills? You can gain credentials from different higher ed institutions. Why should I have to be married to one? Could I not go to an expert and stack them together? And one of the analogies that was used, which I thought was fantastic, was tuition will become more like Spotify. Back in the day, you used to have to go to the store and buy a whole CD because you wanted to listen to 1 or 2 songs. Then Spotify came out, and I could get a subscription, and I could pick the ones that I wanted, make my own playlist. Let's think of degrees like that, and how could, and they referred to it, how could the workplace tie in with that as well to offer that as a stackable learning path for their employees? So one of the speakers gave this stat, and unfortunately they didn't tell me exactly where the numbers came from, but they were from a pretty credible source, a university. So I'm going to stick with the number, but let's be honest, a lot of people can give a lot of numbers, but they had a point in what they were saying. We need to be prepared for the 85% of jobs of the future that don't exist yet. And so to us, we were quite taken aback when we heard that. But then the next speaker was talking about how there's jobs now, such as a prompt engineer, which goes into AI and trains the AI on prompts, a job that didn't exist 3 months ago. And so are more of these jobs going to be coming? There was another organization, a large bank, global financial institution, that was talking about how they moving their mapping of skills to mapping of jobs to mapping of skills, and how deep people's skills are across that role, so that if the role eradicated, could we switch that person or just have to top them up with other credentials in order to move them across the jobs that don't exist yet? So thoughts, please pop into chat. What do you think? Whether it's 85%, whether it's 50%, even if it's 20%, that's still a lot of jobs in the future that don't exist. So pop into chat whether you have started to see this, what you think, if this scares you, this excites you, it's intriguing to you, whether you believe it, whether you don't. Yes, Annie, thank you. So we love it being skills-based rather than job title. Scary, Karina. Yep, I agree. We were quite taken aback and didn't quite believe it while they were speaking. So keep putting your comments into chat because I'd like to, for all of you, excited for my daughter to have so many new options. That's true, Joe. Thank you. A lot of people were saying that, the degrees and the jobs that we're saying to kids these days, what do you want to be when you grow up? Some of those jobs may not exist. So we need to, as learning professionals, identify that is coming, and what are we doing from a structural perspective to support that sort of learning and changing. Thank you, Annie. Janelle, excellent, great challenge and opportunity. Yes, Asha, I agree. It is an opportunity and definitely something we should start thinking about. So in terms of megatrend number 4, so education as a benefit. So as we're going, it would be interesting to see if anyone does provide education as an employment benefit, but lack of development remains a key factor in why people leave jobs. We've definitely seen that across the organizations that we work with. Live and learn environment was a big topic that was spoken about. There was study and earn and live and learn. Those were the themes that came out. So and a big one around, if AI is taking over and machines are going to be talking to us, we need to be very purposeful in helping people find the purpose of their work and continually identify that. That one was one that really struck me. So what can we do as leaders to help people be continually reminded about what is their purpose of work? Because it can be very overwhelming when you've got AI and tech all around you all the time. So let's move on to consider the new hybrid world of work. So as I mentioned earlier, I was asking people where they're based because this is the new reality and we need to work with that. And so one of the speakers took us back to Friday, March 13, 2020, which is really when the world had a turning point. I will laugh and back and say I've landed in the US on March 13, 2020, going overseas for a wedding, thinking this will pass, and clearly it did not. But the world as we knew it changed. And he made a joke, but it was true. At that point in time, it was the fastest change management that anyone globally has ever done. And you didn't need to pay millions of dollars to any change management consulting firm or anything like that, because people were just able to adapt. And I think that has changed for a lot of people. They've become a lot more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so the question that we came back and asked to ourselves, what does it mean for leadership development? What are we as MCI doing for our clients differently, acknowledging that we're no longer in 2020? We are now in a new world where there's flexibility and adaptability, and that's what our employees want, and that's what we need to be providing. And so just something for you to think about, and happy for us to talk through how we've adapted our leadership development programs. But it's really one that cannot stay the same as what it was, or we cannot have turned it off in 2020, unhibernated it back in 2023 and start with the same old. It needs to be different. And so what will it take to thrive in the workplace of tomorrow? This was one of the discussion points that one of the speakers was talking about. And he said, and I agree, it is not the old style competency framework and matrices. And as I mentioned, that large bank who the speaker was talking about, huge financial firm globally, was saying there are no more neat tick boxes for foundational, advanced competency. This is what you need to do for this role. It's looking at the skills and what do we need to do to stack skills differently as roles change and the world changes, because people have been able to adapt, but have the organizations and the workplace been able to adapt with them? So there's been a stronger focus on skills, and I'm sure you guys have felt this, particularly during COVID. People were hungry, different ways of skills. There's no longer sitting in a classroom for 1 day, 2 days, sometimes 5 days to try and learn things. Everything is multifaceted. People are in the office, they're out the office, they're adapting, they're changing. And so what we have found, and what some of the speakers were echoing, is that companies will take skills development a lot more seriously. With the number of workers shrinking, we need to train people up faster and better. There needs to be a more pragmatic approach to skills in a hybrid world. So it would be interesting to hear what you guys are thinking about in terms of the next wave of skills in this hybrid world. Learning needs to be different. It has to cater for a diverse background of people, aging, scarce workforce. We have had that in Australia for 3 years now. It is very difficult to find people, and we want to retain them. And we want to be able to move them as those roles are shifting, and then more learning in the flow of work. And I think a lot of the technology is enabling it, but what are we doing to try and push that and use the technology to guide us? And so another one of the sessions was called the fundamental redesign of skills, and I loved this. And it was actually Josh Bersin, whoever anyone knows Josh Bersin, was talking about skills clusters, and rather than focusing on skills, and I need to put you in a presentation skills course for a day and you're good with the skill, it's rather an academy style learning. So rather than putting somebody through a project management course, the Project Management Academy, which anyone from different parts of the business who needs project management skills can come and do a cluster of skills within that academy. And that is how he's helping new ways of working within workforces and how they do new skills development. So interesting to hear from your view. He was saying, you know, most junior to most senior person, they should all go through academy style learning. Proud to say that MCI had the Trainer Academy. I'm pretty sure we trademarked that. Denise can let me know if that's true or not. But we had the Trainer Academy years ago. And so we would love to help organizations set up academies, because it's more than just the training, it's everything that bundles around it. And I love the skills cluster terminology. This one was also quite interesting as well. So machines are learning faster than humans can. I think we need to accept that. But what I loved is this analysis of the broad skills versus the deep skills. So and you need both. You need upskilling and side skilling at an accelerated pace. It's the ability for people to learn deeply within a skills cluster, but also the power of them and the ability for them to learn in general so that they can have that cross-discipline expertise. And so I love this analysis of broad skills equal the deep generalists and deep skills equal the deep specialists, and how we need that T junction of both and enabling people. So what are we doing to enable people to have that cross-discipline and deep discipline expertise? So it would be good to hear from you guys where and how this fits, or where you see that fitting in the corporate learning landscape. Hiring, huge implications for hiring. And so one of the speakers was talking, for example, before generative AI and open AI, there was a lot of AI that was already being used in hiring. So for example, if you put your CV in, the AI would read any of the keywords and spit out to the hiring manager of the thousands of applicants who we think that you should go and interview. And there are a lot of issues with that. As we know, there's bias and you can miss some great talent that way. But it was interesting because there was huge implications for hiring. And as the AI is moving, it was saying that what the speaker was arguing, that we should not look at CVs in their traditional form of what job role somebody did, but rather the skills that they have gained. And how might we move into a position where we are hiring for people's skills because we know that those are the skills that will help them be successful in a range of different roles that they may have with our company. And so I thought that was interesting because particularly in the US, some of the AI at the moment strips out based on which university you went to. If you didn't go to university, you were also automatically excluded. And so this speaker was arguing that we should flip the narrative and start hiring for those skills. Something that broke my heart a little bit is the applicants to business school has dropped significantly because people are identifying that, potentially it's better for me to hone in my skills as opposed to just walking out with a degree. And so this speaker's argument was that their prediction is within 5 years, businesses that hire based on skills will have twice the business impact because they'll have a more robust workforce that is able, remember the 85% of jobs that don't exist yet, a robust workforce that has the skills to be able to shift and adapt and stack their credentials across the organization. So again, something to think about. Is this making sense for everyone? I love this. This was Josh Berson's title. He said that learning and development and HR should no longer be called people officers and learning and development managers. It should be the chief growth officer. And I absolutely love that because it's true. It was about taking the talent that we have and harnessing it and building their capability with their skills academies and skills clusters in order to guide the business no matter what the change is that's going to be coming, and be innovative in that process. So any questions that you have so far? Yes, Bianca, I also love it. I've told a lot of our clients they should put in a business case for a new title. Hierarchy perspective, Annie, I agree. I think it's going to take a long time to adjust from promotion based on job titles, definitely. It's something that I think a lot of businesses are going to grapple with in the future. So, all of these things are for us to start thinking about. But I guess the purpose of this presentation and me showing you all of these things, and remember, it's the Davos of education. These people are thinking big, they're thinking in the future. But for us, it's what can we take from that future thinking, which is not that far away. In fact, many things are already here. What can we bring down to earth into our organizations? Perfect. So question for the group, is anyone using VR, virtual reality? So that popped up quite a few times. There's still quite a few organizations that are using VR. There's a lot of companies that were promoting it. There was actually an Australian company as a case study that was mentioned, which we were interested in. Restricted by cost, definitely, Bianca. I think that's one of the restrictions. Some of the other restrictions, I'll come back to that slide in a moment, but some of the other restrictions are that it's still expensive. As you say, you need coding and special expertise. I think the headsets make logistics very challenging. If you've got a geographically dispersed workforce, getting headsets out to people is very hard. And people get headaches. I got nauseous when I used to do VR, and I have tried it since, and it has improved, but it's still not 100% there. And so these were just some of the stats that we heard on VR. And it's just not to say that MCI is offering traditional VR. We are offering our own version of VR, and happy to talk about that. But I thought these stats were really interesting, and some of them came from an Australian organization, retailer, that they were using as an example. So 81% of companies saw a reduction in onboarding, which I can definitely agree. If you're talking someone through versus them seeing it, of course, that's going to reduce time. Walmart was a great example. They have hundreds of thousands of employees. And so that 3 hours and 15 minutes that they save per employee extrapolated over time is a lot of time. 96% of companies are seeing a reduction in training time. 97% of people felt prepared for high-risk situations. So all of these are great examples. The upside, so I spoke about the downside, pilots practice in flight simulators. So why can't we practice for other roles? And it's about the speed to proficiency. So really, that's what the key selling point is. How fast can we get people upskilled? And it helps embed those skills as well. And so there were a lot of health examples. There were a lot of safety examples where equipment is very expensive. VR was being used. But again, if you want to know more, please reach out to us. But again, for us, where we were looking at VR is potentially, getting rid of boring e-learning. But again, you've got those budget constraints. So something to just think about as well. So we spoke about VR. Please pop into chat if you want to learn more. We've got a lot of notes on that, but I do understand that for most applications, it's quite cost restrictive. All right, ChatGPT. For those of you that haven't used it, or those of you that have, let's have a bit of fun. So it's time to get practical. We're going to learn about ChatGPT. So first of all, the secret to using ChatGPT is about giving good prompts. And please, we are looking to create a free module on how to use ChatGPT in your organizations. So contact us if you want to get this and look out for it. But it's really in the prompt. ChatGPT is smart, but it can't think what's happening in your mind. So great example is if you ask it to write an article about a tennis bracelet, it'll write an article about a bracelet at a tennis court. It cannot exactly put the words of what's happening in your brain. So we just need to provide it a bit more commentary. We have to be specific and explicit. So write me an article in what voice, how long must the article be, what are the key messages you want to be included, who will read the article. So that's how explicit you're going to get with it. I will say, I didn't know this word before we went there. ChatGPT or generative AI, depends which one you use, they hallucinate. So it is convinced that it is correct, but it is providing you incorrect information. So you do need to check the facts, and there are ways that you can ask it to make sure that it tells you whether it made it up or drew conclusions, or it's actually drawing it from information that it's seen. But also remember, teachers get things wrong too. So we can't say, oh, ChatGPT is incorrect, so hence we mustn't use it. We just need to work out where our risk tolerance is. And as I mentioned, it's the worst version we're going to have at the moment. It's only getting better. So let's start using it, learning it, so that when it does get better, we're on that learning curve and that train. The other thing I'll say is check the English and grammar. It's written with American English and grammar at the moment. The Google version, I think you can translate into about 100 different languages. I don't think Australian is one of them. So just check that as well. Check the tone of voice. Does it sound authentic to you? You're going to copy and paste it into an email, and someone's going to say, oh, that's a bit out of character. So you can edit what it's done, or you can ask it to give you a different version. Does it come across as if you're writing it? You can always edit it. What modifications do you need to make? So, don't just copy and paste is the general gist of that slide. And practice makes perfect. In the beginning, I used to ask it many different ways of doing something, and someone would ask the same thing but in a slightly different way and get a different response. So you've just got to keep practicing, but it does start to learn what you like as well. And the key thing that somebody said, which is 100% true, if you're not using it, your competitors are. So don't give up too soon and say this is too hard. Also, as another person said, even if you don't like using it, remember that the workforce that is coming in will be trained in it. And so if they walk around the office and they see nobody's embracing it or everyone is poo-pooing this technology, they're going to wonder maybe why they joined your organization. So it's really something for us to be thinking about. So let's go live. Give me 2 seconds to stop sharing my screen and to take you guys over to ChatGPT. Please continue popping questions into chat so that we can answer those. So what does everyone want to see? What's burning as a desire to learn? So let's speak to ChatGPT. So please, I'm going to ask her to write a training program for me. Please write a scenario for a training program teaching people about cyber security risks and phishing attempts. Help if I could spell. The audience are corporate and quite experienced. Make the scenario interesting. All right, let's see what it comes up with. So anyone who hasn't seen ChatGPT, it's pretty fast. Okay, so this is giving me an example of what we could do in terms of a scenario. So I could say to it, write this scenario and fake email so that I can include it into a training course. So let's see if it'll write it for me. There you go. So that's what I was kind of hoping that it would do. I didn't explain to it too well what I was hoping for it to get out, and so we can go on and so forth. I can also ask it to create, for example, 3 quiz questions about email phishing for a banking environment. So these are just some of the examples. I'm being very quick here. I would obviously take a little bit longer, but you can see, I mean, it's pretty fast and a lot more accurate, I think, than somebody could write themselves in less than 3 seconds. But I'm just giving you an example. And so some of the other tips and tools that we have seen have helped is asking ChatGPT also to give 3 types of examples or write it in 3 different ways. Just getting my screen up for you in a second. So asking it to write it, can you give me 3 different options of writing this, or asking it to you know, give it to you in one tone of voice and then another tone of voice. But I hope that gave you an example of where, see if that'll work. There you go. I hope that gave you an example of how ChatGPT, that was one super quick example, but I wanted to showcase for anyone that hasn't seen it before of how fast and smart it can be. And so Annie asked a question, is this the same whether via desktop or iPhone? I find the desktop version a lot better. It is the same, but in terms of if you want to write an email, a LinkedIn post, an article, course content, I find the desktop better. For the iPhone, where I use it is when I have an aha moment. And this is a great example of how you combine the human with the AI. I have an aha moment of, I'll give you a live example at the moment. We have a lot of our student mentors who are assisting people with role plays in terms of doing their qualifications. And so they say to us that sometimes it's a more boring part of their job because they're not really helping a student. They're essentially a prop that's sitting there. And so I hopped onto ChatGPT and said, is there an AI tool out there that can run scenarios and role plays with our students online? And that's where I used the phone version, because it was just giving me ideas, pointing me to different websites, that sort of thing. And so it's more for idea generation or solving a problem that I used it. But essentially, it's the same tool. It's just how you like the interface. Was that new to anyone? Did anyone use ChatGPT? Was that the first time? What were your thoughts? I mean, that was a 30-second micro speed version of ChatGPT, and happy to stay online afterwards and show people more or talk more about examples. Use it all the time. I love it, Karina. Thank you. Janelle, very impressive. Yes, ask it to be a rogue AI. I missed that one, but that I once said to ChatGPT when it had helped me with a lot of things, "Oh, I love you," something along those lines, and it said, I'm not a human and I can't have human emotions, but I'm glad I assisted you," or something along those lines. It does have a bit of a sense of humor. You used it to write case studies. Thank you, Catherine. So there's some great examples within the MCI team. We've used it to help us assist people with tasks they just don't like doing. A great example is we get a report. Sometimes the data in the report is nonsensical, but there's thousands of rows. Can copy and paste some of the sections into ChatGPT, and you can say to it, which of these rows is nonsensical or doesn't make sense or doesn't answer the question, and it'll point out to you which those are, which is making life easier for a lot of people. I've also used it to summarize. I tend to overwrite and overspeak, as you guys can see, and so I've asked it many times in the past, here is my email or here is my letter, can you please put it in a more succinct language? It's amazing how many filler words you use and you don't even realize. Excellent. So if you're not willing to give it a go, please let us know why, what's holding you back. But it seems like a lot of people are trying it, embracing it, thinking about it. But if you aren't, I'd love to hear why. There's no shame in that, and it would be good for us to also understand, because if you're questioning it, there are other people in your team as well. I will say that a lot of people that we've spoken to have said, "Oh, I love ChatGPT. I love where AI is going. It's not for my business. It's not for my industry. It's not for my role." It is for all of those. We just need to find where it plugs in. We'll send the link, Will, but it's OpenAI, I believe, is the exact link. So it's chat.openai.com is the official one. So this one really blew my mind. And whether you have kids or not, this was where, as I mentioned, Vern, Denise, and I's jaw literally dropped. So Sal Khan, for anyone that hasn't heard of Khan Academy, they provide thousands of videos for math, science, and English, heavily used in the US, but also in Australia, Asia, Africa, South America, where kids can go online and learn how to do Pythagoras' theorem, and it explains it to them in 7 different ways, gives them examples, etc., etc. And so they have partnered with OpenAI. It's the first official partnership to the Create Khan Migo, which when I show you will blow your mind, I hope, as well. But it's really about how they wanted to democratize education. They wanted to get every single student globally a personal tutor, and they wanted every teacher globally to have a personal teaching assistant. And so you'll see when I give the example, and we'll share the link so you can watch the full video, it doesn't just give the student the answer, and it doesn't just tell the student how to get to the answer. It prods them in different ways so that they start to learn how to think. It also then learns how the student thinks so that it can give the student different examples. And as a teaching assistant, it goes back and says, "Oh, we had Denise. Denise and I were working last night on, I don't know, algebra, and she was really struggling. So I changed some of the examples that you set for her, and I gave her some slightly easier ones. But we had Catherine, who was doing really well last night, and when we were working on challenges, she was flying through them. So I gave her some more difficult ones." Could you imagine what it would change for a teacher to walk in and know exactly where their class needs some extra one-on-one assistance, who's going ahead, who's falling behind, and who's doing otherwise? So let's see if we can get that going. But while we're watching, just know that it really is here. Science fiction is now reality, because when you see this example, and it's the first of many that are going to come out, it mimics a writing coach. It is as if you have a tutor sitting next to you with suggestions and prompts and new ways of thinking, one-on-one tutoring. I mean, it will revolutionize education. And what is next? I think that's where we were mind blown. So let's see if this works. Let me know if you guys can't hear it. So this is Sal Khan. I'm just going to flick through to 2 minutes, about there. So this is teaching equations. Some of you may have PTSD looking at some of this. Anyone else besides Bianca that can't hear? No sound. Okay. So some can hear. I'm getting some thumbs up. We'll send this link for those of you that can't hear, because you should watch the whole TED Talk. It's mind-blowing, and we've also got the version of when he launched it at ASU+GSV. I'll just let it play for a little moment. But you can see it's teaching coding, which is amazing. So we'll send this link over. It's quite long, but definitely worth it. And I think just to go back to the Sal Khan comment. So what he also showed us, which I thought was quite cool, when it was teaching English, you can change the AI to talk as if it's Shakespeare or some other literary figure. And so kids were loving that in the pilot, and they, were chatting to and learning how they speak and what life was like back in those days. And so they've run pilots across the US with both the maths and the English and the coding tool, and chalk and cheese in terms of results. I mean, the engagement in the classroom is through the roof. The test scores are through the roof. Student confidence was through the roof. Parents were satisfied. And so the one thing that it was interesting, Sal Khan was talking about, because they had both Sal Khan and Sam Altman there, who is OpenAI, is that he kept saying, no, we don't want to partner with OpenAI because of the ethical concerns. We don't want kids to get the answers. We don't want people to be told what the answers are. And so that's where they've created, as I mentioned, this AI that lives on top of the AI to police. And that's what it does. And so it's created very tight guardrails. And of course, they're going to continue testing it. I don't remember the exact figure, but they have hundreds of employees all over the world that sit there checking that the AI has not gone off cue, and any flags get checked by people. So it's still going to take a while to sort of learn. Do I think this would translate through to adult learning? Definitely. It will take some time before we can get to the point of a Khan Academy, which obviously has a global reach and a global purpose, but I do not believe that it is far away at all. It may not be in every single part of what we do, but en masse, I can definitely see that this is going to change things and learning in the flow of work for sure. So questions and comments, please. As we're going through, I'm conscious we've only got 6 minutes left, and I always like to finish on time, as everyone knows. So please continue to put in your questions and comments while I leave you with a few more gems. So Bill Gates was interesting. I will say, Denise laughed because she loves a good Diet Coke. He was the only speaker. Every speaker had bottles of water next to them. He was the only speaker that had a Diet Coke next to him. So I thought that was interesting. He also shared the story about how OpenAI and Sam Altman came to him numerous times and said, Microsoft should buy us. This is going to change Microsoft. And he told them to go away because he thought AI was nowhere near where it was. And his famous line, I loved it. It's time to resuscitate curiosity. That was the aha, because we're so ingrained in our day-to-day. I love that. That's where the human element comes in on top of the AI. It's the HI. So that was great. When you pay attention, that is when you become a great learner. I also love that as well. I think back to the comment of 100 minutes on social media, somebody mentioned attention spans. I did love that one. Cheryl Sandberg was an amazing speaker. For anyone who doesn't know, she was the COO of Facebook, which became Meta. She just recently stepped down, but she's still on their board. If anyone hasn't read her books, Lean In and Option B, they're both excellent. And so she was talking from a lean in perspective. As you go higher up the ladder, there are fewer women in leadership positions. That has not changed. But then she did joke, men still run the world and it's not going that well for them, is it? And everyone had a good laugh about that. But she was a fantastic speaker as well, really saying, there's AI and all of these things coming, but we still need to be flying that diversity flag because we have come leaps and bounds, but we are not there yet at all. Sam Altman gave a great example. He was talking about when the calculator arrived, we were scared of the new technology. With new tools, we step up, we become more ambitious with what we want to achieve. And that was his example. Another speaker referred to the script writers in the Bible, when they the scribes, who used to write the Bibles. When the printing press came, they said, no, nobody's going to want a Bible that's printed. It's going to be handwritten. It's the same thing. It's about embracing that technology. And for those of you that are still here, please, I just wanted to share with you an MCI special offer, because whilst we go out and learn and we come back and teach, and this is what we've done for 20 years, we also want to give back to you guys. And so embracing that theme of scalability and the ability to get learning out to as many people as possible, to stack those skills and to help people, irrespective of their job role, gain the skills, we created the MCI Live Virtual Classroom subscription. For anyone that doesn't know about it, probably the easiest way to describe it to you is that we've got 60 sessions per month, 65 titles. There's multiple tiers, but really it's about budget friendly, and it's per seat rather than per month, which many of you may be on a license contract that you're a bit stuck in and no one uses. We get full subscription to these, and our sessions are amazing. So please speak to us, because we've got an amazing special on that. And it's really about that scalability and economic solution. So I hope, as somebody said, I love that comment. Thank you for igniting my curiosity. I hope that this was a good summary for you guys. As I said, it was 3 days, 3 different lenses, 7,000 people there. This is what we brought back. If you have any more questions or comments, please stay online. Happy to answer them for you. We will send you a follow-up with some of the videos. There was also a few presentations that we may send out. If you've got specific questions on some of the topics, we've got more notes on those, so please reach out. And of course, reach out to any of our account managers, because we are more than happy to assist you in rolling out some of this training and building out those skills sets and skills academies.